You may have noticed on certain formal state occasions, particularly at state banquets, that the female members of the British royal family wear pinned to their left shoulder coloured bows. They have hanging from them small semicircular badges that have at their centre portrait miniatures of the last three crowned British sovereigns, all within a setting of stones and with little crowns atop them. In this thumbnail you can see Her late Majesty wearing two of these and the Princess of Wales wearing one. These bows and their badges are the insignia of the family orders of the British royal family, a form of private decoration that has been, at least for the last century, bestowed upon senior female members of the royal family by the reigning sovereign. Her late Majesty is wearing the family orders bestowed on her by her grandfather, King George V, and her father, King George VI, while Catherine is wearing the family order of Elizabeth II. They're not really an honour as such, but are intended to be a personal gift from the sovereign and a memento of them, and they're supposed to replace the medals worn by men, and are worn in a similar formal context. It is a recent tradition, this, relatively speaking, around 200 years old, and in this video I explain when and how this tradition began, and I look at the various family orders bestowed over the course of the past 2 centuries. The first royal family order was established by King George IV at his accession in 1820, and by establishing it the king was in essence formalising a tradition that was popular in the 18th century. There was a craze in the early modern period for portrait miniatures, and that craze peaked in England during the reign of King George III. It was a craze that enveloped all the courts of Europe, but was perhaps most popular in the English court, where courtiers, both men and women, would often wear miniatures of the king. The fashion in the English court seems to have begun with George III himself, who on his wedding day in September 1761, when he married Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, presented to her a fabulous set of new jewellery, including a ring with his portrait in it and 2 pearl bracelets, one set with a miniature of him and a second with a locket containing his hair. Queen Charlotte wore the bracelet with his portrait on it constantly, and the fashion appears to have caught on first with the royal family and then with the rest of the court. George IV, as Prince Regent, began a tradition of giving his own portrait miniature to favoured members of the court for them to wear, and when he came to the throne in 1820 he decided to create a formal family order that included the presentation of a miniature set round with stones and suspended from a white silk bow that could be worn at official court functions. This was given by George IV to a very exclusive group of royal women, of whom only 6 are now known. The King's sister, Charlotte, the Princess Royal and Queen Consort of Württemberg, his sister Elizabeth, Landgravine of Hesse-Homburg, his sister-in-law, the Duchess of Cambridge, his niece, Princess Victoria of Kent, later of course Queen Victoria, his other niece, Princess Augusta of Cambridge, and Princess Dorothea Lieven, the wife of the Russian ambassador. This is Charlotte, the Princess Royal's insignia, still on its original white silk bow. All the surviving examples have a miniature of the king by Henry Bone that is based on the state portrait as regent painted by Sir Thomas Lawrence in 1814 or 15. The miniature on this example is set in an elaborate frame of diamonds formed into the shape of oak leaves and acorns and topped with an imperial crown. The back has the king's cipher set in diamonds. The order owned by Princess Elizabeth, interestingly, came up for sale at Sotheby's in Geneva last year, and it is identical to her sister's. From the very beginning, there has been some grading of these family orders, with those closest in relation to the sovereign wearing slightly larger and more elaborate insignia. The insignia of Princess Augusta of Cambridge, later the Grand Duchess of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, is somewhat simpler, with a border of diamonds topped with a crown. This photo shows Princess Augusta wearing George IV's family order sometime after 1878. We know it's after 1878 as she's also wearing the insignia of the Imperial Order of the Crown of India. William IV does not appear to have had a family order, but the idea was revived by Queen Victoria in the 1860s after the death of Prince Albert. The kernel of the idea began in 1856 when Victoria and Albert presented to their eldest daughter Victoria, the Princess Royal, a badge and ribbon on her confirmation day. It had a cameo of them with their heads in profile, set around with diamonds and suspended from a crown and against a white silk ribbon. The cameo was based on a medal made for the Great Exhibition in 1851 by William Wyon. The same gift was repeated again in 1859 when Princess Alice was confirmed. The intention in 1861 was to do the same when Princess Helena was confirmed, and her insignia was ordered, but of course Prince Albert then died. At some point after the Prince Consort's death, Queen Victoria decided to institute a family order, and Princess Helena was the first recipient. She received the same insignia as her elder sisters, and it is implied that they were the founder members of the order too. The order was founded on what would have been the 22nd wedding anniversary of Victoria and Albert, the 10th of February 1862. After her confirmation in April of 1862, Helena went with the Queen to Prince Albert's rooms, where she there received her confirmation gifts, including the insignia of the new order that the Queen had named the Order of Victoria and Albert. This Order of Victoria and Albert, founded in 1862, had 4 ranks, of which the princesses had all received the first. The badges of the first 3 ranks all had the cameo, but the settings varied in their splendour. The badge of the 4th rank, which was usually given to female courtiers, had the cameo substituted with a jewelled cipher of Victoria and Albert. The last person to still be wearing the Order of Victoria and Albert was Princess Alice, Countess of Athlone, the granddaughter of the Queen, who died in 1981. She also received Queen Elizabeth II's family order. After the death of Queen Victoria in 1901, Edward VII and his Queen Alexandra of Denmark decided to continue the family tradition. What is not often realised is that Edward and Alexandra appear to have founded 2 separate family orders, one each. Rather than having 4 ranks, the order of Edward VII simply had 2 sizes, one size for the Queen Consort and another for other recipients. There were 11 recipients of his order in total, including the Queen, and all were members of the royal family, which was a change from the Order of Victoria and Albert. The miniature of the king showed him dressed in a field marshal's uniform with his garter sash and the badge of the Order of the Bath, set in a surround of gold and diamonds set to form oak leaves and acorns. This in turn suspended from a diamond and enamel imperial crown. The ribbon is much less subtle than that of the 2 previous royal family orders, which were both white silk, and is in the king's racing colours, blue, purple, yellow and red stripes, which makes it rather personal. Queen Alexandra's royal family order was bestowed with certainty upon 2 of her daughters, Princess Louise and Princess Victoria, as their insignia survives. I haven't found any evidence so far of Queen Maud of Norway, the 3rd daughter, receiving it. If anyone knows if she has, do get in touch. The insignia of Queen Alexandra's order is simpler than the king's, but equally personal. The example that belonged to Princess Victoria was made by the jewellers Rowlands and Fraser of Regent Street. There is a miniature of the King and Queen in profile by the Danish miniaturist Johannes Zeengraf, who often worked for Fabergé. This is set within a frame of pearls and crosses patties set with diamonds, and the badge is suspended from a ribbon in the colours of the Danish flag. It is quite a lovely thing. George V had his own family order from 1911, and he reverted to 4 ranks or sizes like his grandparents, but bestowed it, like his father, only on members of the royal family. Size 1 was bestowed on Queen Alexandra, his mother, and his wife, Queen Mary of Teck. Size 2 was for his aunts, his sisters, his daughter, the Princess Royal, and daughters-in-law, including, of course, the late Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Size 3 was bestowed upon his granddaughters, the future Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Margaret, while size 4 was bestowed on cousins, nieces and sisters-in-law. In all, there were 23 recipients of the order. The badge, which was made by Garrard's, the court jeweller, has an oval miniature that departs from that of previous kings, as it shows King George V in an admiral's rather than a field marshal's uniform. It is set in an oval diamond-set frame and topped with a diamond and enamel crown, and is suspended from a pale blue ribbon. Now, the style of the family order of George V was replicated more or less in the orders of King George VI and Elizabeth II, which were all produced by Garrard's too. Edward VIII didn't, of course, have time to introduce a family order of his own. The order of King George VI was introduced in time for it to be worn at the coronation in 1937. The badge by Garrard's follows the pattern of his father's, though the setting is Art Deco in flavour and the badge is set on a pink ribbon. He too is shown dressed in an admiral's uniform. He reverted to his grandfather's tradition and had only 2 sizes. One size was worn by Queen Elizabeth, his consort, and the other by his mother, Queen Mary. The second size was bestowed on his daughters, his sister, his sisters-in-law and nieces. There were only 8 recipients of his order, and after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, only one is now alive, Princess Alexandra. We often saw Her late Majesty wear both the order of her grandfather and her father on state occasions, when it was either pinned to her dress or, if she wore the garter sash, pinned to that. The family order of Elizabeth II was introduced at Christmas 1952, which is when the first recipients received it. In terms of design and setting, it follows that of her father and was made by Garrard's initially, though I'm not sure who made it in recent years. The portrait miniature of the late Queen showed her as she was in 1952, in a white and blue dress with a garter sash and with the George IV diamond diadem on her head. I had read that the portrait is now painted on glass rather than ivory, but I do wonder if a good number of the miniatures were painted all at once in 1952. The ribbon is of yellow silk. There were 2 sizes as before, but the larger size was given in 1952 not only to the 2 Queen Dowagers, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and Queen Mary, but to Princess Margaret too. In 1981, Diana, Princess of Wales, also received the larger size. There have been 11 recipients of the smaller version. In 1952, these included her 2 aunts and her great-aunt Princess Alice, Countess of Athlone, and Princess Alexandra, her cousin. Although Princess Diana received the larger size, Camilla, as Duchess of Cornwall, received the smaller. The last recipient was the present Princess of Wales in 2017. As of late 2023, we are yet to see King Charles III bestow family orders on his family. His mother and his grandfather had both introduced their orders well before their coronation. Perhaps Charles III won't continue with this colourful and rather personal tradition, but we'll just have to wait and see. You never know. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my channel, please don't forget to like this video, to share and to subscribe. Thanks very much indeed.